then just give, like Judge come and Tiffany come and just talk about, and I know in your memoir as well, you talk about the stigma of mental health and how it's feeding really, and you don't say it in these words, but feeding the court system with our
Yeah.
young black man who is saying, who's think it's a stigma to talk about mental health. So I'm gonna stop right there. I don't know if Judge you're going first or Tiffany's going first. I'll let you guys go.
I'm, I'll I'll go first. Good evening, mothers and others who are on this, have joined us on this Zoom call. I thank you. Thank you, Laura, for that warm introduction. And I have so much to be thankful for. Just a couple of words about my memoir that I just completed in November. And upon receiving it in the mail, it's like 500 and some pages. Someone received it in the mail and they said to me, my wife said that it's bigger than the King James Version, so, as if it's the Bible or something. But in any event, thank you for the invitation to come, Lori. Thank you, Tiffany, Tate, for joining me this evening. I wanted to talk a bit about mental illness and the stigma, and I'll have a word about court cares just before Tiffany speaks. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I thought that it would be a good time to discuss mental illness and how it in particular affects young African Americans. In fact, some studies show that African American males are disproportionately affected by mental illness. But mental illness has no respect of persons. The poor, the rich, the educated, the uneducated, it doesn't matter who you are, it can strike you at any moment. And a number of years ago, I met a young African American who was a freshman at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And he said to me, he told me that without warning, he became very depressed during his freshman year. He stopped associating with his classmates and he stopped going to class. He said there were days when he could not even get out of bed. His mother took him to the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed him with severe depression and recommended immediately that he get inpatient treatment. But his mother, a true Christian, refused to put him in inpatient treatment. And his mother said that she was a Christian woman, that she believed that she could pray him back to health. There's this stigma that prevails throughout society, Black, white, Hispanic, whoever it is, that a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But there are some well-known persons throughout the United States who do talk about it and give some people the courage to get treatment. Just in a little bit, Ms. Tiffany Tate is going to talk about her journey and how she found the strength to overcome. I will put a pin there and say right on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, on this past January, I happened to be home because it was a federal holiday, and I heard all these sirens, and I knew something was happening. And so I looked out front, and then I went to my back deck, and heard crying. And the crying was my neighbors crying. Her 16-year-old daughter on her 16th birthday committed suicide by hanging herself. And I walked forward, and all I could do was, I think I was probably crying as much as my neighbor, but it was like, and she had been suffering from mental illness for a long time. She was in private school, and she was, had a counselor there, and she had a counselor here in Chapel Hill. And so, this stigma is really, really a terrible thing that keeps many people from getting treatment. I had a psychologist friend who told me that a young Black guy that she knew that he needed help but wasn't getting it. And his reason for not wanting to get help, he said, I already have two issues that keep me from getting ahead, and that is that I'm Black and I'm a Black guy. And if I were to get mental health treatment, I would be labeled as being crazy. And that might take me over the cliff, he said. And also, I just think that young men are often taught to be strong and macho, and it's hard enough to get them to. And I have a 35-year-old son myself, and I just know that it's very difficult to get him to even go to the doctor, let alone to get mental health treatment when needed. Ironically, just today, I presided over a case where the state of North Carolina was being sued by this organization whose responsibility is to make sure or to look after the welfare of the mentally ill who have gotten caught up in the criminal justice system. Often they are placed in jail until they can find a bed for them. And sometimes it takes weeks and months. And so they were suing the state to try to get an injunction to require placement. And I understand that in the last number of years, the number of beds have gone down tremendously that are available for persons in the mental health arena. But the long delays is what they were trying to get me to issue an injunction. I want to conclude my initial opening statement here by encouraging mothers to fight for your sons and daughters. But it seems to me that our sons really need a lot of help right now. They're not as respected as in other races, in the white race. But fight for your sons. Lori brought something to mind, and then Miss Tate also mentioned today about how she prays with her children. And my children growing up, I prayed with them, got in the car, and we prayed before traveling anywhere we were going. But pray with them from their youth and encourage them. I want to read a couple of quotes from, one of them is a psychologist, Aileen Kennedy Moore, who's a PhD clinical psychologist. She writes in her book, Smart Parenting for Smart Kids, Nursing Your Child's True Potential. And this is on page 188 of my memoir, and I'm quoting. She says, "The miracle of children is that we just don't know how they will change or who they will become," end quote. And then Arthur C.J. Milbrandt, in his book, On Your Mark, The Adventure Begins, writes, "Have a little faith in your sons. This journey will be the making of them." Have a little faith in your sons. This journey will be the making of them. And then I had one more, but my tab has gone someplace else, and so I'm not sure that I can find it real quickly, but here it is. I don't know, you probably, many of you may not be old enough or remember head coach of the UCLA Bruins back in the 60s and 70s, Coach John Wooden. He said, "Parenting is the most important profession of all, and it is most essential in the early formative years. Our youth must be led, supported, and directed, but never driven." And that's yet another powerful statement. I want to make just a couple of statements about the guests that I invited to come with me to this tonight. I met Tiffany Jones Tate during a Black History Month program at Oberlin Baptist Church in Raleigh, where she spoke briefly. And I was so impressed that I invited her to our Court Cares program, where we invite persons from different walks of life. I recognize that not everybody's going to want to become a lawyer as I did, and so we invite people from different professions. And so she came, and I was yet again, she was a superstar there, and I know she will be again tonight. We heard her little boy crying in the background a little bit ago. And so the Court Cares program that she came and spoke with us is on the flyer. I think Lori summed it up. We do try to encourage 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That's who our audience is, from the Durham middle schools, to stay on the right side of the law, to stay away from bullying and respect their teachers, respect each other. We just talk to them, about various things about gun violence, and I've asked for a show of hands about how many of them know someone that's in a gang. And on one occasion I asked that, and probably 1/3 of those said they did. And I was just like, how is it possible that somebody that young know gang members? But I'm old school, and didn't even know such a thing as a gang when I was growing up. And so Tiffany, go ahead and feel free. I had to tell them when we were in court that I guess essentially she can't get up there shouting, but she is a spiritual person. But on the other hand, tonight is it's okay to praise
my people.
the Lord. Yeah, people. So go ahead and encourage us, Tiffany.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judge Webster. Thank you, Lori. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful program that you have here. So my name is Tiffany Tate. I'm a mom, and I'm a new mom of a son, and just want to tell y'all that love hits different than with your girls. Your son is like, that's mommy's boy. He's 10 months. He actually turned 10 months yesterday. And so my baby girl was 10 when I got pregnant, and then she turned 11 a few months after I had my baby. So it had been a while since I had a newborn baby. And my two girls that I had, my two daughters, they had a very traumatic entrance into this world. So I never experienced postpartum with them. They were both in the NICU. And so I was more so focused on getting them healthy and getting them home. And I was also younger, in my 20s. So when I had my son, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And so I was on a very stringent diet, taking care of my daughters and just trying to get into the mindset of having 3 children. It seems like you're outnumbered with 2 people. You got your husband, got me, and I got 2 girls. And so a third one, it was just like, how can we, make this fit with 3 kids now? So I had him on May 24th of last year. He was born via C-section. And I tried to give birth to him naturally because my other daughters were born via C-section. And they told me it was called trial labor after cesarean. So it was a 50-50 chance that I could deliver him naturally or I would have to have a C-section. So after about 10, 12 hours of labor, I wasn't progressing at all. And I basically asked them to take me to the operating room to, get out of the pain and just have my son. And so I was very nervous about the C-section, and now I know it was high anxiety, just because of the stories that we hear online about women, Black women in particular, having C-sections or things happening to us in childbirth. And so my anxiety was through the roof. And so I asked the doctor lots of questions about the C-sections, questions that I know I didn't ask in my 20s. I just went through with it. And I was still nervous about it, but I went in and I went through with it. And so immediately after I had my son, I felt different. I don't know what it was, but I just felt it in the operating room. And I just constantly kept asking my nurse, what's going on now? What's going on now? Question after question. And she, walked me through it. And so when I got to the recovery room and in my actual room that I was staying in, I don't know, I just felt really drained and tired. And so I thought it was because I tried to push and then I had to do a C-section. I had never felt like that before. But once I started getting like treatment in the hospital, as far as like, them treating my wounds and things like that, I was asking them a lot of questions. They also told me my son had to have, he had to get circumcised. And that's not something I went through before. And I heard him screaming down the hall. And so in my mind, something was wrong with him. And I was begging them to bring me my son back. And they was like, we can assure you we do this every day. He's fine. We'll bring him back. And so they brought him back, and I would be holding on to my baby's crib in the hospital like this, because in my mind, I thought somebody was coming to take my baby. Remember, this was the first baby that I had in the hospital room with me. My other 2 daughters were immediately taken to the NICU. And so I wasn't able to hold them, bond with them or anything. So I wanted to protect him at all costs. I told my husband, if they need to take him out, then you go with him. But that was all anxiety, because this was things that I was telling myself in my head. And so I went home maybe 2 days later. When you have a C-section, you can stay in the hospital up to 5 days. I was ready to get home, just rushing to get home. I didn't want anything to happen to my baby where he needed to go to the NICU. So we were released. I got home. Immediately when I got home, I was hurting. So I asked my husband to get me some ibuprofen, some Tylenol, because I just could not do narcotic pain reliever, which is not for me. So I took my Tylenol, took my ibuprofen. And after I took that, I started to have chills. And so I was like, oh my God. In my head, I thought I had overdosed on Tylenol and ibuprofen. And so I called my best friend and I said, hey, my husband's going to stay with the baby. Can you take me to Wade Med? And she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, please just come really fast. I think I overdosed on ibuprofen. And she was like, okay, but you can't overdose on ibuprofen. I said, oh no, yes, I did. And so panic started to set in. I thought something was going to happen to me. And so I called my OBGYN, and I let them know that I was freezing. I didn't have this issue in the hospital. My temperature was fine. My blood pressure was fine. Something must be wrong. And so she told me there was something called postpartum chills, and she thought that's what I had. And so I said, okay, postpartum chills. In my mind, I'm thinking that something happened during the C-section and maybe I had an infection or something. So that was the start of the hospital's visits. So I probably went to the hospital during an 8-week period, maybe 6 times. One time I went to Wake Med, and then the next night I went to Rex because I felt like Wake Med wasn't helping me. I would go there, I would just feel panic. My heart would be racing really, really fast. My head would be hurting. And it was just a feeling that if you've ever experienced postpartum depression, it's just like a heavy feeling. And it just continued to progress. Those feelings continued to progress. I never had any thoughts of harming my baby, but I thought something bad was going to happen to him. So I didn't want people to come visit me because I thought that maybe somebody would do something to my baby. So I did my very best to try to keep him safe. And I was doing most of the caregiving with him. And so my husband wasn't a big support at that time because I didn't want him to do something to the baby. Again, all of this was things that I was telling myself. So when people would want to come over to see him, even though I didn't want them to, I would allow like my family to come, but I would just be over hyper vigilant, taking care of him, taking him from people, doing most of his care. And most of the time they were there to help me. So it spiraled to the point where I couldn't sleep. My son was very colicky, so he would cry a lot. And so I thought he had the same disorder that my oldest daughter had, because one day he got constipated and he didn't poop for like 24 hours. And so I panicked and I took him to the emergency room. They assured me that he was fine. They asked me if I wanted to do x-rays, and they told me the risk involved with the x-rays. But I was like, I want you to check him to make sure that nothing is wrong with him. And he was just constipated. They gave him an enema. He pooped, went home. And so the next day he started having little spots like breaking out all over his face. And so I called his doctor and they told me it sounds like he just has, what did they say? Maybe like I think they said sensitive skin. And so in my mind, I thought the doctors didn't know what they were talking about. And so I said, well, is there any way if I can bring him in, because these spots are like, growing. And so they were like, well, did you change his formula? Is he still breastfed? I said, he's still breastfed. I just want to make sure he doesn't have any allergies. So they said, no, we see this. This is typical. In about 3 or 4 months, it'll clear up. And so in my mind, I didn't think my baby, like his skin was going to clear up. So these were all like normal things that a newborn would experience that in my mind was like emergencies that I needed to take my baby to the doctor, or I needed to get emergency assistance and I need to get it quickly. So in the midst of all of that anxiety, my blood pressure started to rise. And I started to feel really faint and dizzy. And so I called my friend again and I asked her, I said, can you take me to the emergency room? Because I feel like I'm getting ready to pass out. And that feeling in my chest again, I started panicking and having panic attacks. And we went to the emergency room and they just said, your blood pressure is elevated. And so in my mind, when they said elevated, I'm thinking I'm about to have a stroke. But when they say elevated, it was like maybe 155 over like 85 or 90, but it wasn't stroke level. Like they weren't concerned. And so they told me to follow up my OBGYN. And so my OBGYN told me that I had postpartum high blood pressure, so postpartum hypertension. And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking again that, something is going to happen to me. And I honestly thought I was going to die. And so they gave me blood pressure medication. And all day long, I was checking my blood pressure to see, if it was normal, because I had never had blood pressure issues. So what they call that is when you keep doing repeated things over and over, it's postpartum OCD. So when it spiraled for me was July. I wasn't eating. I was not sleeping. And I was just in all day panic. And so when I wanted someone to take me to the hospital, I needed them to move fast because, again, I thought I was going to die. And so the feeling was so real that I thought it was going to happen. And so when I kept going to the hospital and they couldn't help me, I just kept saying, like, these people cannot help me. If you go to the hospital and they can't help you and they're not listening to you, they're not making you better, you know, what else can I do? And so in my mind, it was just like, it's no need to continue to go to the hospital because I come back feeling worse. They're not helping me. And so I was like, I started to think like, okay, so is this a mental issue? Do I need to be in a mental hospital? Because this is not me. I am the type of person that is very strong. I'm highly educated, and Judge Webster said that mental illness has no look to it. I have a master's degree. I'm a care manager for Alliance Health. I deal with individuals who are mentally ill. I schedule their appointments for them. I manage their life. How am I feeling like this? And so I'm a person who absolutely loves life. I speak life. I speak joy. I couldn't even hear music. And that was something that really ministered to my heart and soul. I create music. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't focus on talking on the phone. My husband would ask me if I want to go to his dad's house so we could get help with the baby. I didn't want to be around anybody, and that is not me. Like, I am a family-oriented person. I'm always with my family. Me and my kids are always doing something. I'm a Girl Scout leader. I was the vice president on my alumni association for my high school. So I didn't feel like this could touch me. And so I reached out to my therapist. I let her know that I felt like I was in crisis because I was sitting on my floor in constant panic, trying to get in the shower, asking my husband to bring me ice to see if I could just get the feeling to go away. I would be shaking, like just trying to get it out my body. And so I started to have suicidal thoughts. And I figured because the hospital could not help me, I have now been to the hospital in my primary care physicians and my OBGYN, and I still feel the same. I wanted to feel like myself, and I wanted it to happen fast. Like, I did not want to feel like that. And so I started to think that I was going to feel like that forever. And so I thought there's no way I can live like this. I can't live like this. And so my friend was trying to tell me, like, this is just high blood pressure. You'll get through it. You got to find the right medication. And I'm not a medication person. I don't like taking medication. And so every time they would try to change my medication or give me something different, I'm Googling what the side effects are, what can happen. And so it was just a whole lot going on in my head, and it wouldn't stop. And so when I started to have those thoughts, it scared me because I had never felt like that before. And I love to eat. So I've never been a person who's not going to eat. And so I just knew that I needed something else to help me. And I remember I had a friend who I believe she went to Holly Hill before. And I know for a fact, like, she's had suicidal thoughts. So I reached out to her and I asked her, I said, hey, I'm having a really hard time. You know, can you tell me what the mental hospital is like? Because I was afraid to leave my children. I battled with it for 2 weeks. I felt like I was going to abandon my children. And so as a child, I was abandoned by my mom. And that's not something I wanted to do. So I did not want to leave my children. And so for myself to get well, she was telling me that I needed to go to, it was called the UNC perinatal unit for women. I had to go there to get treatment. I did not know how long I was going to be there. Did not want to go. But there was no way I could continue to be at home because I couldn't cook. I couldn't care for my children. I couldn't care for my baby. I didn't know what to do at home anymore. It just did not feel right. So my therapist, she gave me a game plan. It was an hour-long game plan. She said, when was the last time that you slept? And I said, I slept earlier today. I thought I would sleep for like 2 or 3 hours, but my friend told me I was only asleep for 20 minutes. She said, okay, have you ate today? I said, no, I tried. I can't eat. I just can't do it. She said, I want somebody to fix you something to eat. You turn on some calming music and I want you to go to sleep. After you eat, she said, if you have not fallen asleep in an hour, I'm going to call you back. And then she said, no, I'm not going to call you back. I want you to call me back because if you have went to sleep, I want you to sleep. And I was just like, okay, breathing really, really, really hard. I didn't even make it to an hour. it was 45 minutes. And she said, Tiffany, you need to take your PRN. It was lorazepam. I think that's what the doctors prescribed me. She said, you need to take that and you need to go now. So I told my husband, like, I have to go to this place. I don't know how long I'm going to be there. I said, I don't want to go there, but I have to. And so he dropped my children off with my friend and he drove me to Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill is about a 45-minute drive for me, and I didn't think I could make it. For me, my husband wasn't moving fast enough. It feels like he was moving in slow motion and he probably was moving fast. But in my mind, I needed to get there now because I felt like it was going to happen at any minute. So I hung up with my therapist. I couldn't get anything. I just sat in the car and waited. And I was so fidgety and jittery that I called her back. I said, I don't think I'm going to make it. My husband is taking too long. And she said, Tiffany, where are you? And I said, I'm in the car. She said, okay, I'm going to talk you through it. And so she talked me through that whole ride. She prayed with me. She spoke life into me. Chapel Hill in Durham is a place I drive to for work just about daily to see my people. And I rode to Chapel Hill like this in the car. And I couldn't open my eyes. I had to ask my husband, where are we now? I think we was in Cary. It was like every 5 minutes. I was asking him, where are we? Where are we? So I made it to Chapel Hill. And I told my therapist, I said, Miss Regina, I made it. And we both cried on the phone together. And I said, I don't even know what to tell these people. What do I need to tell them? She told me everything I needed to say. And as soon as I said I was having suicidal thoughts and suicidal thoughts and ideations, they took my phone, they took my purse, they took everything from me. And I felt like it was jail. And I was like, what did I sign up for? Because I had to go in through the emergency room. And the gentleman that helped me, he started talking to me and he was like, hey, I know your husband is out there. Do you want to go upstairs where you can talk to your therapist? Because you don't seem like you need to be down here. And I said, I don't know where I want to be, where I need to be. I was like, but I can't really talk on the phone. And so he said, well, I'm going to get somebody down here to check you medically first. And once they check you medically and they clear you, we can put you upstairs in the emergency room. And I said, okay. So they checked me, they cleared me out medically. And I went upstairs it was still the emergency room, but it was the mental health, kind of like a holding room. There were no glass or anything in there. There was a window. There was a bed, but it was like, bolted to the floor. And there was a desk that was bolted to the floor as well. And I was in there by myself for a long time. And then they let my husband come in. And then a psychiatrist came to talk to me and asked me my story. I told him my whole story. And he said, I didn't fit the criteria to be involuntarily committed. And he said, either you can be treated outpatient or inpatient. And I said, I can't go home not feeling like this. I told him my whole chest was burning. My body felt like it was numb. And I don't want to go home feeling like this. And I can't do anything at home. And I don't know if they have to do blood work or whatever, how they kind of weed out people to go upstairs. Because the perinatal unit was mixed in with the crisis unit because that facility was being renovated. And so I was there for about 24 hours before they took me upstairs. They admitted me as a crisis patient because they didn't have room in the perinatal unit. And the psychiatrist told me that I could take the therapies with the perinatal unit, but I would have to stay a crisis patient because they didn't have any beds in the perinatal unit. And so that just didn't sound right to me, but I just had to go with it because I didn't have any other options. And so he said, if you choose this, then you're going to have to sign yourself in. He said, and understand, if you want to be released, you can't just be released on your own. It'll be a 72-hour turnaround for us to evaluate you. And so he said, what would you like to do? And I signed myself in. And so I went upstairs. And the first night was really hard because I hadn't slept in a while. And they gave me some melatonin to sleep. And I thought they had drugged me because when I finally went to sleep, it was like when I woke up in the middle of the night, my body, I could not move. And so the psychiatrist explained it to me that, hey, you have not slept in a really long time. Your body needed that. And so they kept talking to me about starting sertraline in the hospital. Again, I was like panicky about medication, and I was just like, I can't be a zombie. I told them I have a very active life. I have children at home. I have a job that I would like to return to, and I cannot be a zombie. My experience with mental health and medication was that the people that I saw were like sleeping all the time, not eating, not really active. And so I didn't want that for myself. And so they explained the medication. They educated me on postpartum depression. And when I checked myself in the hospital, I had postpartum anxiety. I had postpartum depression. I was in postpartum psychosis. I had postpartum OCD, and I had postpartum panic attacks. And I believe that's all 5 women's mood disorders, because it had spiraled so much and it went on for so long. I was at risk of developing major depressive disorder if I did not seek treatment. And so I stayed there for 10 days. I did the therapies. The first day was so hard. I just kept on saying, I can't do this. I'm not a person that can just be confined into walls and not being able to go outside and people doing everything for you. That wasn't me. And so I thought I was in the wrong place, but I was exactly where I needed to be, not where I wanted to be. And God was in that hospital because I was at my lowest and my darkest time in my life. I didn't even believe anymore, because I was just like, how could God do this to me? But I was no longer alone, because I met so many other women that were going through postpartum and getting the help that they need. It took me 10 days to get stable, and I was able to go home to my kids, and I haven't looked back. I've been doing the therapies. I've been taking my medication. I've been able to return to work. And like I told Judge Webster, like when I have an opportunity to talk about postpartum, I do, because I never knew anybody that had postpartum. I heard of postpartum depression, but I thought it was if you want to hurt your baby. And I was like, I don't want to do anything to my baby. I didn't even want to hurt myself. It was just the thoughts that was telling me that, and it scared me. And that was the only thing I knew to do. I felt really weak because I was raised to not ask for help, but I needed help. And I kept telling them I wanted to get better immediately, and I had to trust the professional, because they said the medication takes about a month to reach its peak to give you serotonin in your body that you need. And so when you have postpartum depression, the chemicals in your body, your hormones drop after you have a baby. And that's what I felt. And that's what I experienced in the hospital. And some women have that huge hormone drop and shift. Some women don't. And I was very ignorant to it, because I thought only white women suffered from that. I didn't think we suffered from it. And it's a lot of Black women suffering in silence. And so I just,
Can I ask you a quick question? You talk about hormone levels dropping. Could that be the same with menopause as well? That's type of for women. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
What would you say for, and I don't mean to interrupt you, I'll let you finish and give somebody else a chance to ask. What would you say to listening to your testimony? And thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. What would you say to the mothers on the line, the women on the line, if you had to give us some advice? Because I know we talk about mental health being a stigma. I don't want to keep it. What would you say to us? Because you talk about postpartum and then menopause, and it happens a lot. Well, we feel weird. I used to say I feel weird.
Right.
What would you say?
I would definitely say, if you feel like you need help, it's okay. It's okay to speak to a therapist. It's okay to speak to a psychiatrist. They can make necessary evaluations and they can help you. I thought they were going to take my kids because I needed to go to the mental hospital. And I think in our community, we are told that you can pray this away. In our community, we don't go to therapy. We don't do that. But I've gained some of the most clarity I've ever had in my life from going to therapy and getting another perspective. And I would also say, don't stay silent and don't suffer in silence.
Because I remember when I entered the menopause years, I would say, man, I feel weird. And I would say that. I hear myself saying that a lot. Judge, were you going to say something? I have one other question too for Tiffany.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask, you were saying that Tiffany spoke at Court Cares. What
Yeah.
was your message to the young people there at Court Cares?
It was her message was basically
Resilience.
It was-
Definitely resilience. It was resilience.
yeah, resilience.
Because one of the little girls told me, she said, "You're strong." So with them, I started with my childhood, and I told them about my middle and high school journey, because I felt like that would resonate with them a little more, because I was a troubled teen, and so that resonated with them. And to stay in school, to listen, because you don't want to have to listen to the people downtown, and you don't want to have to be in a courtroom trying to defend yourself and begging and pleading for a second chance, because once the freedoms are taken, that's it. Mm-hmm.
So your mother, you said that she abandoned you.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect, briefly, because we want others to ask questions, but just briefly, how did that affect you?
It has affected my whole life. Just coming through life, I felt like I did not belong, like I was unwanted in a lot of relationships, friendships too. It makes you feel like you don't fit in. It makes you feel like you question a lot of things. It makes you question your character, your confidence, my mothering. I question a lot. And so therapy and prayer, my church family, my family are the only people that I can really say have helped me through it and helped me to get to where I am today.
What church do you go
Because
to?
your mother is supposed to be the one person that loves you unconditionally and is supposed to be there through everything.
Yeah. Two questions. What church do you go to, Tiffany?
Wilson Temple United Methodist Church,
Okay.
right down the street from Overland Baptist.
And then did you grow up with your dad?
I did not. My dad was an alcoholic. I mean, I saw him, but I didn't grow up with him. He was also schizophrenic and bipolar.
Okay. I just wanted, I don't know if we have, I know I see my son, but I don't know if there are other men on the line, but I just wanted to encourage them to let them know how important they are in their child's life as well.
Especially if you have a daughter and you're a male, you daddy's little girl, and you're the first person to teach them how a man is supposed to treat them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause for a minute. Any questions or comments for Tiffany or for Judge Webster? Any thoughts from anyone? Okay.
So Tiffany, I'd like to thank you for your testimony, and have you maybe connected with other women who, particularly like post-pregnancy or post-delivery, to kind of maybe share your experiences. So if something similar happens to them, that at least they will at least have some knowledge, or how have you used your experience to help others?
Yes. So I do a lot of social media posts about what I went through. I was able to share my testimony at Overland Baptist. Anytime I get with somebody who I know that is pregnant, I tell them signs and symptoms to look for, because it's not something that I feel like the doctors or my OBGYN gave me. And so anytime I have the opportunity to share, I do.
You also raised one of your siblings, didn't you?
I did. I raised my sister from the time she was 10 to 21.
Yeah, resilience is excellent. I'm sure you can speak a lot on that topic. Resilience. Thank you.
I have a song. I read your email when you said that everybody has a ministry, and who they are supposed to minister to. And mine is children. So I write children's music, and children's books. And my song Resilience is what I played at church when Judge Webster heard me speak at Oberlin Baptist.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Margo, for that question. Excellent question. I'm sure we'll be
Mhm.
Tiffany again if she's willing to do that for us.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome, awesome platform. Thank you guys for coming and just sharing. Because we're all somebody's depending on all of us to walk strong in our ministries, to walk strong in our calling. Some people are hurting because others are not walking strong in their calling. So I just encourage everybody on the line to find out what that calling is, what your ministry is, what your voice is, and do that.
Mhm.
And do that. So yeah, thank you so much, Tiffany, for that, for just being so transparent.
Absolutely.
I'm
And
gonna
make
share.
sure you pour into yourself,
Mm,
so that you're not giving from an empty cup.
yeah.
Because I did that. I ran myself in the ground. I tried to give to everybody, but wasn't giving to myself. And the hospital really taught me that.
That's awesome. That's good.
Also, Lori, as you say that, we have the theme this year with the women that friendship is connecting to each other. And as one of our ministers said, as older women, we have to pour out into the younger women so that we will have space in ourselves to receive
Yeah.
and help us to recognize how important self-care is. Because if you're not in a good place, it's difficult for you to be in a good place with others. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, just connecting. And we talked about the pandemic and how people just kind of separated and never came back together. It's very important that we connect, because our testimonies, as your testimony, can help somebody else.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yep.
Thank you.
The test was for you. The testimony is for somebody else.
That's good.
Yeah.
Still that.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything else from anybody else? We're going to ask Tiffany if she'll close us in prayer. Do we have any other thoughts or comments? Thank you all so much for coming. And
Yes, you're welcome, Laverne. I appreciate everybody that's been here tonight. If we can bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you right now as humble as we know how. We thank you for this beautiful evening, God. We thank you for Lori. We thank you for Judge Webster, God, for putting this together. We thank you for your presence, God. We thank you for being a mighty, awesome, and on time, God, even in our darkest days, God. We thank you for being able to breathe, for being able to hear, for being able to see, for being able to speak, for being able to think, and to be in our right minds, God. We thank you for physical wholeness, physical wellness, God. We thank you for spiritual wellness, God. We just thank you. We thank you. We ask that you continue to bless every person on this call. We ask that you touch them, God. We ask that you bless their purposes and their calling, God. We ask that you allow them to continue to operate in their gifts. God, get the abundance and the wealth that they deserve, God. We thank you. We ask that you continue to allow us to live in your glory, God. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you, God. We thank you. God, I ask that you continue to bless the people on this call and their families, God, whatever they're going through, God. Touch them. You know every need, God, every heart, God. We know, you know, we know. God, these and all of the blessings we ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much. Tiffany, if you'll hang on the line for me, please.
Mm-hmm.
And I say thank you, everybody, and just pray
Yes.
sweet sleep, sweet sleep.
Amen.